Yes, a real job can be gruesome. A real job can make you very tired, but a real job doesn't suck the soul out of you. You know what I mean? In the same way that 9 hours of streaming absolutely will.
Second video in a row about Hasan. I swear I'm not obsessed, because this time, you see, this time I'm going to be defending him. Welcome everyone, I'm Chris and you're in for a rare treat today. We'll be discussing Hasan's take that you just watched a clip of, Abba and Preach's reaction to it, and then finally Asmongold's reaction to it. I'll walk you through the missing context, explore some additional nuance, and call out Hasan for what I believe he should be called out for in the context of this video. I myself are both a full-time wagey as well as a streamer. Neither one of these makes me a millionaire, and both of them leave me thoroughly exhausted sometimes. If we wanted to lowball some estimates, I'd wager that Hasan after a day of streaming has access to more wealth than I do after a month of full-time employment. Despite this, I will be defending him. Today, and only today, I am Hasan's strongest soldier. As always, the entire video is timestamped, so if you're familiar with the broader context, you can skip ahead to the sections where I address points made by specific content creators directly. Subway surfers are going to play in the background, because it did in my last video, and that was my most viewed video to date, so even though the reality of what you're looking at right now makes me kinda sad about the state of human existence, I am nothing if not pragmatic. If you do end up enjoying the video, please remember to like and subscribe as it helps the channel greatly. Without any further ado, let us jump into it. What we'll start off with is a slightly sped up but unedited full version of the clip chimp we've just watched.
No. Social battery wise, unless you're in retail, it's very different. You're out of touch with I'm gonna die, dude. There's motherfuckers who are accountants in here and they're misunderstanding what I'm saying. A real job does not expend your social battery in the same fucking way as someone who did a sales job, a real job, okay? I'm telling you, as someone who did both, like 9 hours of constant performance and people pleasing taps you out from social scenarios. After 9 hours of that, I could probably do fucking physical labor. It would not bother me, but I can't fucking do more social shit. That's my point. Like, there are obviously real jobs out there that are good comparisons. Service sector, people pleasing jobs would be very similar. Those are like, I think, customer service type shit. But like if you're an accountant or if you're even like in sales, my interactions with clients was limited, way more limited than like constantly having to do this for 9 hours with like a back and forth interaction for 9 hours. That's what like sucks your social battery and you just tap out after it. Yeah, think about it this way. Like you give presentations for your job, right? Imagine giving a presentation for 9 hours straight. It's like after a while you'd be like, I don't want to talk ever again.
Now that we've seen the broader take, let's establish two things. First of all, when you watch a clip of someone's take, you're not watching the full product that they have made. You're watching essentially a fragment of their existence that whoever clipped specifically wants you to see. This lends itself to creating misinformation and usually making you feel very ooga booga trigger happy. Now, this doesn't mean that we ought not to watch clips. I'm just saying that if you have a really strong take as a result of one of these clips, you need to be ready to either walk it back or defend it. And the second thing is that falling for these clip chimps is actually really easy. My dumbass did it. I watched Hasan's take, and given how in my last video I was shitting on him, I was immediately primed to jump the gun and make another video to rake in my Hasan bad stonks. Now, if you felt similarly, that's understandable, but give me a chance to change your mind. Let's talk about the take itself. Hasan is comparing his own experiences as a streamer to his own experiences working in sales. He's entitled to arrive at the conclusion that he feels way more mentally exhausted now as a streamer, particularly given how I doubt he spoke to like 50,000 people daily when doing sales, and in a way that is exactly what he's doing right now. Now, could he have worded that take better? Yeah. Could he have caveated it a bit and been smarter with the delivery? 100%. Is he still wrong about some aspects to this? Abso-fucking-lutely. However, Hasan streams for like 9 hours a day, and I won't sit here and pretend like he doesn't get to have moments where he isn't at the top of his game linguistics-wise. I don't like Hasan, I'll probably never like Hasan, but I'm not going to tear away the basic fact that sometimes streamers are talking to their own community, especially when venting about their feelings, and they expect to be taken in good faith and not clip-chimped. Shit on him for things he deserves to be shit on for, but not for something like this. In the context of the clips we're talking about, he was being vulnerable, and I don't think we should tear that away from him. Naturally, as you'd expect, Abba and Preach reacted to Hasan's take. Now, I will not play their entire video for you for obvious fucking reasons, and if you want to watch it in full, then it will be linked in the description down below. Overall, I think the video is actually really good. There are parts to it though that I agree and want to expand on, or disagree with that I want to sort of explain an alternative perspective on, so here we go. First things first though, Abba and Preach have played the full context, longer clip, and they still disagree, so that is what we'll be mostly focusing on.
He didn't say that he's drained because he's working 9 hours a day and he's talking to people for 9 hours a day. I can understand that. I can understand the fact that you're going to be drained. He said that his job is more draining than any normal job.
Excluding retail, to be fair.
And life doesn't work like that.
Nope.
Maybe I'm being extra good faith or charitable here, but obviously Hasan didn't mean that his job is more draining than every single regular job is. I mean, even Hasan isn't that insane. And I'm not without sympathy to taking him at his word. I've done that before myself, but in this particular instance, I don't think it's outrageous to say that his job has uniquely draining components to it. Holistically, Hasan's life is nowhere near as stressful as the life of a working class person who has to do overtime at work to be able to afford bills on the given month. His life is nowhere near as stressful as that of a middle class person who is allegedly supposed to be enjoying the opulence of capitalism, but getting a mortgage will break them in fucking half financially. Hasan will never have to worry about the state of his car, whether he's willing to eat less but keep the heating on a bit longer during wintertime. I understand all of this. Most of us would rather be Hasan, financially speaking anyway. That doesn't mean that his job doesn't have uniquely stressful environment to it. There are messages he receives on the daily basis that I can't even show you on screen because of how badly TOS they are. He has his life threatened, his loved ones doxxed, pictures of CP or mutilated animals sent to him, and plenty more that I can't even begin to wrap my head around. All of that on top of being an entertainer for 9 hours a day. He gets rewarded plentifully, sure, but let's not act like his job isn't far more stressful at times than other jobs are.
But I think his point is that a lot of these people who work in these kinds of jobs after work, they like to go out. They like to go out, grab beers, you know what I mean? Accountants will do that, but
that's not everybody. That's a couple of people. And if it was so, the city would be filled with, happy hour would be every day. Happy hour is on Thursday. It would be filled with people every night. Now, some people, they go home. You know why they go home? Because after they go to work, even if they don't feel like it, they got families to attend to. And they got to do that.
Now, this part of their video is actually very true. When I'm done with my 8-hour shift, and when I'm done with the commute that is attached to that 8-hour shift, before I can start streaming or edit YouTube videos, as I'm doing right now, and try to pursue passion and meaning, I have to do chores. And I'm unable to pay other people to do those for me. Hasan can, and he does. Once his 9 hours of work are done, he's free. Once my 9 hours of work are done, the next 9 hours of work begin. On top of this, I don't get to choose my working hours. Hasan does. I don't get to play somebody else's video on stream while I eat my dinner and still make money off of that, and Hasan can. All of those are fair criticisms.
The levels of disconnect that people, like, why should we feel any sympathy or give a shit about what your struggles is? You're literally choosing it. That's like you do it for money and then complaining it hurts.
Wow, this slap was hard. Slap softer. Don't slap yourself, dumbass.
I think I understand what Abba is getting at, but I still disagree with him rather strongly. This was the last clip from Abba and Preach that we'll go over in an interest of keeping this video short enough that people with actual jobs can still watch without feeling like they need to commit half of their free time to some fucking weird-ass VTuber on the internet. Since the analogy that Abba used is getting slapped, and the only job that I can think of where that specific thing can even be a part of the experience is sex work, that's what we'll roll with. Now, if you get paid to be slapped, or getting slapped some type of way is a part of your job description, that's one thing. But if this Belgian blue rolls in, you get to complain. You absolutely do. And yes, before that one dude in the comment section goes wild, I understand that sex workers don't get paid to be slapped specifically, just like, please keep up with the context of the video. Hasan doesn't just deal with disagreement and angry chatters, he deals with absolute unhinged lunatics. And he does get to complain about that. Overall, I really liked Abba and Preach's video. It will be linked in the description down below as I've mentioned earlier. I'd say that generally speaking, people are really quick to forget how fast we as humans acclimate to our environments. Hasan's genuinely wrong when he thinks about what a normal job entails, and he has a very poor basket of references regarding what normal even means, and there's a ton to be said about that. However, streaming in a capacity in which people like him or Asmongold or Destiny stream in is an incredibly mentally draining task, and they get to vent about that now and then. Asmongold, Asmongold, Asmongold. Without a doubt, one of my favourite streamers, particularly with how every little bit of information about him that I discover makes him seem really fucking unhinged, and yet he's probably one of the most level-headed and down-to-earth streamer millionaires that I've ever seen in my life. Drama after drama, controversy after controversy that he voices his opinions on prove time and time again that he is more than worth listening to. Now, I've already re-edited this segment and deleted a bunch of things because, just like Asmongold, I pause the video every 5 seconds to add more and more takes to make sure that I'm not taken out of context, but I can never decide when enough's enough. If by some miracle the waking nightmare of cleaners all around the world feels like I'm missing context or nuance, he can let me know and I'll talk to him directly. My last video hit like 2,500 views, so I'm ready for the big leagues anyway. Some parts of this broad segment will be more light-hearted, some are far more serious. Asmongold welcomes people to challenge his views, so even though the subject of the conversation is supposed to be Hasan, it's this part of the video that we'll spend the most time. So do enjoy.
What I'm saying is that there are some jobs that are more and less mentally taxing or emotionally taxing. Like, for example, I bet being a police officer is more emotionally taxing than being a streamer. As I've said, I think being a police officer or a nurse, for example, imagine being like an EMS person. I think that's harder than being a streamer in like every single context, other than maybe you don't get swatted, right?
I don't think my boy Asmo would even disagree with me here, and take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt because I'm not American, but I have spent a few years doing volunteer work in a place frequented by police officers, and I can guarantee you, with no word of a lie, there are going to be specific days where being a streamer is far more mentally taxing than a day of filling out forms or like non-escalating traffic stops are for police officers. I'm not saying that being a streamer is more taxing than being a police officer by default or on average, because it isn't. And I'm not saying that being a streamer at its worst is more taxing than being a police officer at its worst, because it isn't. What I am absolutely saying is that being a streamer has moments of horrible reality that warrant people like Hasan having a, let's call it an unrefined complaint. Also, just on a quick note, regarding the bit that would play shortly after the clip I've just played for you about money not making problems go away, it absolutely makes problems go away. I mean, look, Asmon, my guy, you can take your graphs, you can make them 4K for all I care, okay? They won't sway me, because I don't know how to read. Truth is that you just haven't had these problems in so long that you've forgotten about what that's like, I think. You're not wrong that it tapers off at a certain income bracket, but most of us aren't in that income bracket. Many of us will never be in that income bracket. $1,000 to me is absolutely an incredibly significant amount of money that would improve my life substantially. $1,000 to someone like Asmongold won't even convince him to read the tutorial prompt in video games instead of ignoring them, only then to complain about the controls being unclear. I remember your early takes about Elden Ring, buddy, okay? You ain't living those down. Not if I have anything to say about it.
Number one, you need to get off my fucking stream and start figuring out your fucking money, all right? I understand this might not be a popular thing to say, but you got to figure out your fucking money if you're making less than $1,000 a month, man. Like, get your shit together.
Obviously, at a baseline level, I agree 100%. If you're struggling financially, you should be prioritizing more important things than chatting in Asmon's stream. This take is relatively popular when it comes to streamers, with others like Destiny sharing a similar sentiment, but it's also just kind of really basic at the end of the day. Now, look, I understand that this take isn't about me, but I will relate it to my own experiences to maybe make this explanation a little bit easier for myself. I have a full-time job, and I make a little bit of money from content creation. However, I'm also Eastern European, so in raw dollar value, I make fuck all compared to, let's say, the American middle class, and I make fuck all cube compared to people like Asmongold. When I'm done with my shift, and when I'm done with my chores, and I'm done bonding with my girlfriend or whatever, sometimes I just want to chill. And I don't think it's going to be that different for many of Asmongold's viewers, maybe even the one he's pointing to specifically. Now, I'm all for fiscal responsibility and telling people to reprioritize, but we're also dealing with the reality of what being working class really is. You can't just change your jobs or just retrain yourself or just do better, particularly in the case of a chatter in question who is in a situation where his income appears to have been cut by 3/4, so presumably there's a reason for that. All of this goes without mentioning the raw fucking exhaustion that overcomes you at the end of a full-time physical labor shift. If you are American and you want some basic but functional financial advice, head on over to Caleb Hammer on YouTube and please fucking listen to him. Credit is due. Asmon is already doing the God's work when the chatter is clearly misunderstanding him, and we can't expect him to also teach everyone finance. But at the same time, let's be real. We can't just expect people to work 24/7, and unless he's watching Asmongold all the time, he isn't struggling financially because he chose to devote a little bit of his spare time to enjoy watching the Twing variant win. And also no cap, and I'm digressing, but as a bald dude speaking to a balding dude, Asmon looks fucking gorgeous with that ponytail.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that having a performance review is definitely very different than talking for a living. Like, there's like a different type of stress that creates. And that's what I was talking about with like different spectrums. So like, yeah, he's totally right that you always have to please people because people give you money. Like if you look at like having a job as an abstract, we stop comparing streaming to other careers. Well, I think that there's comparisons to be made. There's comparisons not to be made.
As a wagey, not only do I agree with Asmongold 100%, I actually think that this take is way more true than his chat wants to admit. Now, I do want to emphasize that Hasan is also undergoing a performance review, a perpetual one if you will. Now, he could obviously quit streaming tomorrow and his grandchildren will never have to work a day in their life because of how much wealth I'm assuming he already amassed, so comparing it to someone like you, or I, whose performance review could be the determining factor of whether they're able to put food on the table tomorrow, is a bit ridiculous, but let's be frank here for a sec. His average views are down. His average hours watched are down. His followers gained are down. And his peak viewers are also down. All of this while he streams as consistently as he used to, and he gets to feel emotional about this. His career is taking a shit, and that isn't irrelevant.
I do think that Hasan owns his success, though. It's not like somebody else gave him that success. I think that Twitch is actually one of the most free markets, and YouTube is the same thing. I think that Twitch and YouTube are some of the most free markets in the entire world, and I'll explain why I think that. So there are a lot of people, Young Turks. I understand you've typed this a few times. How many views do the Young Turks get on Twitch? Because they used to have a Twitch channel. As far as I know, they don't anymore, but they got like 100 or something like that. They don't get that many. Hasan gets a lot more views than the Young Turks do.
See, this right here is where the battle truly begins. If you ever wanted to see Asmongold versus a random VTuber, I am here to provide. Hasan didn't pay for shit on his own. He comes from a giga-rich family where his uncle gave him a media job that he leveraged into being featured and signal boosted by people like Destiny, take advantage of significantly bigger content creators, networking with them, only to, once he got the ball rolling, leave the space completely and never extend the same courtesy to others that he himself has been receiving for what feels like his entire life. He's a really talented dude who had a level of help at every step of the way that most of us have never received once in our entire lives. In 2013, when he interned for the Young Turks, according to the source I found, TYT had approximately 4,000 paying members on their website, with their total yearly revenue hovering around $3 million. Their concurrents on Twitch matter fuck all. He paved it on his own, did he?
It has not been easy for me, and you know, I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million, 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 small loan of $1 million.
On top of this, Twitch and YouTube are absolutely not the best example of a free market or a functioning meritocracy. Someone like Adin Ross, whom Asmon uses as an example in his stream, used to stream ridiculously long hours. That alone is not available as an option to anyone who isn't a teenager living at home or from a rich family. On top of this, the algorithm rewards clicks with more clicks and high view count with more viewers. I'm almost certain that Asmongold himself would agree that there are content creators out there who are a fragment of his size who deserve to be much, much bigger than what they are. That also goes without mentioning the ethics behind the job and people like Johnny Somali, for instance, becoming semi-popular, not because of their talent, but because they're vicious cunts who will record themselves being racist. You can watch those people for the same reaction that you would go to the zoo for example. And I mean, not everyone should even be willing to do that. On top of this, many of these content creators hold a level of power in their hands that is so extreme that it can literally make or break your career. People like Asmongold can feature a content creator on their stream and make them blow up overnight because of how massive his influence is, him being Asmongold here. There have been a number of controversies as well over the years with streamers blacklisting up-and-comers from networking opportunities because they dislike them, or in order to hide some fucked up shit that they did behind the scenes. Right now, there is a drama happening in the Genshin Impact community where a popular content creator who has large influence over the miHoYo partnership program is allegedly blacklisting other content creators from it so that they don't receive the extra revenue and networking opportunities so that he doesn't get challenged. Streaming is a form of media, and media has never been about meritocracy. I mean, not really. You can think about someone like Tucker Carlson, for instance, who has the biggest show in the world, and that fucking dumbass made a short video about how infatuated he was with coin-operated shopping cart locks in Russia because he deadass didn't fucking know that's been a thing in America for decades, and he's a partisan hack.
All right, there we go. So I guess you put in 10 rubles here, and you get it back when you put the cart back. So it's free, but there's an incentive to return it and not just bring it to your homeless encampment. Okay.
This take from Asmongold is what I believe to be a naive take that is thoroughly untrue. My Twitch end year review has been putting me in the top 1% of active streamers ever since I had like 14 average viewers. That's 14, not 40. Streaming is not an easy job, and talent 100% gets rewarded. But it's not a meritocracy any more than capitalism as a whole is meritocracy. If you're talented, you'll get far. But if someone else is also talented, or happens to be rich, or is both talented and rich, and wants to fuck you over, all you can do is squeal. And this brings me to a far more important part of this video.
But like if you're in the US and you're being made to work over your hours that you're supposed to work, you need to file a complaint and you can maybe have a lawsuit and then you wouldn't have to work and maybe you could have time streaming. That's illegal. So yeah, not everyone can afford a lawyer, bro. You're so out of touch. So what you're saying is that because some people can't afford a lawyer and they can't get anything done, actually by the way, to be fair, if this was actually true, any lawyer would take this case pro bono, which means that they would take it for free and then just take a percentage of the settlement money because they would know that they could win this case very easily and get millions of dollars from the company.
So on this note specifically, Asmongold is just plain wrong. Logically speaking, his take is sound and there are no glaring errors of judgment and there's nothing particularly out of pocket if we talk about how the society ought to be. But the legal framework to protect employees is kind of like how the saying goes, show me a 6-foot wall and I'll show you a 7-foot ladder. It's the practicality of what Asmon is talking about where we get into rough waters. In almost all cases in the USA, mandatory forced overtime is legal as long as the employer meets the Fair Labor Standards Act guidelines. Those are being paid times and a half, not being endangered at work, and no breach of previously established contracts, such as a, for example, union contract. In the USA, only 1 in 10 workers belong to a union. If you refuse to work this overtime, your employer has grounds to terminate your contract. This isn't about being able to afford a lawyer, this is about the lawyer being able to do fuck all about this. On top of this, if you want to sue your way out of this, then the investigation your lawyer will need to perform has to end up successful for you to see any positive resolution. This means evidence and a tangible track record. Thing which often isn't so clearly available when the pressure being enacted on you is done verbally and you have deadlines and projects to meet that were unreasonable in the first place, but you don't really get to complain about because you need to be able to afford your bills. On that particular note, you also can't even research the sheer number of people who do overtime even without their company technically knowing about it, because their direct manager or team leader strongly alluded to a promotion being up in the air and only happening if current projects are accomplished, because they know it will make them also look good in the end to their own bosses. In many service jobs in particular, even if you wanted to do a half-assed job as some form of a low-effort protest, you know you'll get an earful from the people coming in, and you're stuck between a proverbial rock in the shape of your manager ever ready to fire you, and a hard place in the form of random people who are also having a bad day and will take it out on you. And of course, you could record your employer, you could carry a dictaphone with you, you could strategically place yourself in the sight of the cameras whenever possible. You could see if any of your fellow workers will stand alongside you or record anything sussy that happens, but this just usually doesn't happen, right? Like, at the end of the day, we don't live in a Tom Clancy's novel, and if dealing with this type of work abuse was easy to deal with, there'd be no work abuse present in the quantities it absolutely is present in. On a more personal note, because interjecting with stories of my life will make you guys parasocially fall in love with me, and now with Minecraft Parkour in the background, I used to do 8-hour night shifts at Amazon 4 days a week while being at uni full time. When the Christmas period rolled around and we were told we'd have to do 2 hours of paid overtime per shift, do you know what happened? My Eastern European ass did 10-hour shifts while studying for my dissertation and exams. They introduced a full attendance £50 paycheck bonus, and one of my co-workers took a half day off to be in a hospital with his sick wife, and they cut his pay because his attendance wasn't technically full, even though he worked the hours off in the same week. Was that illegal? Probably, but go ahead and explain to a 50-year-old whose wife is dying that he should sue Amazon and become a streamer. Now, I understand that Asmongold was shitposting, but you understand my point. And don't even get me started on my fellow immigrant workers who constantly get told that they will be fired if they miss even 1 hour of work because the managers knew that they don't know about their rights and won't fight them. Vast majority of these cases aren't about not getting paid for overtime. They're about your soul being sucked out of you in a way that barely gets you the compensation you deserve, and then you come back home from that and you hear a multi-millionaire complain about stress, and it understandably gets the caveman DNA in you pumping real hard. In terms of unethical job realities taking advantage of you being the norm, the problem here is that workplace discrimination research in general is massively limited. I found a study which talks about aspects of this, and this doesn't even focus on anything like wage theft. Actual wage theft affects more than 17% of the workforce, particularly the working class, and they aren't even aware of it in a way that would make them do anything about it, or would make it even possible for them to do anything about it. If you want to take it a step further and talk about potential consequences in the form of wrongful termination, then according to a source from an employment rights attorney, I found claims that out of 100 employees who file a wrongful termination claim, as many as 64 will likely receive compensation, which is honestly pretty good of an outcome, which is unfortunately massively overshadowed by how these are most probably cases with abundance of evidence, as in the cases of those which go to trial, only about 10 to 20% end up with a favourable verdict. What this will mean, in my pragmatic albeit layman opinion, is that many attorneys will not take these kinds of cases pro bono, as Asmon has mentioned, unless they have a guaranteed win. If you can't give them a guaranteed win, you either throw some cash money at them to take your case, which even then doesn't even guarantee that you will win, even if you are correct in the sort of ethical sense, not in the legal sense obviously, or I suppose you can feel free to go and fuck yourself. This is made even worse when you consider that according to Schwartz Legal, the most common type of workplace discrimination in 2020 was retaliation, sitting at 56%. Same in 2022 with retaliation sitting at 55% according to Wenzel Fenton. All of this paired together unveils a stark reality where you'd be forgiven for thinking the system is set out to fuck you in the ass. Asmongold sometimes misses, and he's not without fault. I'd like to think I made a decently sound argument for why that is the case, and that being said, he said something really, really important during this entire drama, which made this video that you're watching right now into what it is, rather than what it would have been, which is a much shorter, probably around the 10-minute mark drama video about Hasan and Abba and Preach. Right here is why I have decided to delve into this so much deeper.
And I don't think that any actual logical investigation into my perspective will reveal me being wrong. And I invite anyone out there, any content creator that wants to farm views, please logically investigate my position and then provide the ways that I am inaccurate in what I'm saying. I have no problem putting myself out there, because see, the thing is, like, I don't have a problem with people making videos about this or getting mad about this or anything, because I do think that I am logically right. I think that what I am saying is true. And while there are the existence of jobs that do take advantage of people, these jobs are generally seen as being very, very bad, oftentimes illegal, and there are lawsuits that happen all the time. And
in my opinion, Asmongold is massively underplaying how common the occurrence of these instances of workplace abuse actually is, and this is why I believe so many people in chat are immediately jumping in to disagree. Watching TV or watching streamers nowadays is a very common pastime for many folks, and people like Asmon sometimes have a very idealized or even naive, you could say, worldview, because the torment of the working class isn't really a guillotine, it's death by 1,000 cuts. It's a continuous and seemingly ever-increasing disparity in wealth between yourself and people who are born into rich families and have been given opportunities at every step of the way that you could only dream of. So many of us are surrounded by opulence, and yet we never get to bask in its glow. I understand that that comes across as spiteful sometimes, and I understand that it's often a source of misunderstandings. I really do believe that, but man, it's hopeless, you know? Now, I understand there's like another hour on the video, but Asmon just yaps and yaps and yaps, and at my current size, making a 3-hour-long response video for it to die in the algorithm with like 50 views will make me feel very sad and depressed and give me like actually decent reason to feel stressed. Someone told Asmongold to make content transformative and he fucking took it personal. I hope that in this video I made at least half-decent attempts at explaining my position, and if by some miracle Asmon ends up wanting to chat or wants me to go into anything deeper, I am more than willing, and the same goes for all of you guys who are still listening at this point in the video. Feel free to fire any comments my way, I am here for you. Now, regarding the whole nobody gives a fuck about game devs complaining take that Asmon has and that I know people will ask about, I was initially not going to talk about it at all in an interest of not bloating this video, but I'll just say this real quick, and I mean, look guys, let's be real, okay? Asmon here is a little bit hypocritical, sure, but this is basically just kind of like gamer rage. It's not great, and I'm sure that Asmongold would be more than happy to take the L on this and caveat his opinion better now because of this entire discourse. But instead of attacking him beyond this point, we should just be happy that he didn't go the PewDiePie route and didn't throw any N-bombs in there, okay? Because I spent enough time playing WoW to know what happened when these peeps angry. Shitposting aside though, let's move on. Now, to recap this entire video, the Hasan's take isn't so outlandish when you add the context that it deserves, and as far as the mountain of stupid fucking shit behind that man that he has said, the one we spoke about today really isn't that bad. You get to complain about your job no matter how privileged you are, so long as you can back it up, and we shouldn't really expect anyone to be in full optics mode every waking second of their stream. Even if you're rich, you get to complain about your job. Other than that, YouTube and Twitch aren't meritocracies, they're far from it. Their algorithmic nature and zero-sum reality lend themselves to a kingmaker system more than anything else. Unethical workplace behavior from your employer is incredibly nebulous and complicated in both researching and talking about, and as far as jobs go, would rather all be any one of these streamers than regular wages. I have love for every single content creator mentioned in this video today, and I don't want to send any hate their way. I would say that honestly, when it comes to big creators, streaming is probably the easiest job for its income bracket. Looking at people like Asmon or XQC or Hasan, put on other people's videos on screen and give their opinions about it, and feeling sympathetic towards their struggles is pretty difficult to do, unless you're also a streamer, like me, or an amazingly empathetic person, also like me. It needs to be said that when you can cash in millions for sharing your opinions, it's good to remember that most of the members of your audience aren't in that position and they don't get paid extra for telling what's on their minds, particularly when at work. I mean, let's be real here, gamers, okay? We might be reformed, many of us anyway, but the ancient art of slur slinging is far from dead. And if most of your audiences, Asmon, would speak their mind at work, they'd get fired, or beaten up, or locked up in jail, or fired, beaten up, and locked up in jail. There have been plenty more takes about this from Ludwig, Charlie, and just about everyone under the sun. Plenty more to talk about, plenty more bits that we didn't include, let alone that there is way more to expand on in the bits that we did include in this video. Truth be told, I wanted to produce this video relatively quickly while the topic is still trending, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the video for what it was, which is an attempt at a somewhat educated opinion piece. If you did, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as share your thoughts in the comments down below. If you are searching for a more cozy and down-to-earth atmosphere, I'd recommend checking out my Twitch and my Kick and stopping by when you have the time. Cheers, goodbye, and remember, at the end of the day, it is what it is.